Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to look at a study by the 7th world chess champion Vasily Smyslov. In this position, we are playing with the white pieces and our goal is to win. At the same time, the opponent has two extremely dangerous passed pawns which are ready to promote to queens. So how can we achieve a win in this position? Of course, the most natural desire is to capture both of these pawns without losing a single piece. But white might also have some other way to win. I won't say anything more for now. If you want to find the solution on your own, pause the video. And before I show the correct answer, I would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel, because then you definitely won't miss new interesting analyses of studies. So let's move on to the correct solution. First of all, we need to notice that the opponent has a very simple threat. On the next move, he wants to play king g1 and then promote the pawn on h1. That is why, for example, we cannot capture the pawn on g3. Black simply plays king g1 and threatens to promote. Here, we are forced to play either bishop d5 or knight f2 in order to cover the promotion square. But all of this, of course, does not work. In any case, we give up one of our pieces and we are left with insufficient material to deliver checkmate. As a result, the game ends in a draw. So let's return to the initial position and think about how we can counter Black's idea of playing king g1. And here, we find the correct first move, knight c3. The idea is that now Black cannot play king g1 because of a fork from e2. In this way, we force the black king to retreat to some square, and on the next move, we capture the pawn on g3. We threaten to capture on h2 and control the promotion square. Black is forced to play king g1, clinging to the hope of promoting the pawn, but of course, we prevent this. We play bishop d5, fully control the promotion square, capture the pawn, and then deliver mate with knight and bishop. I hope you know how to do this, so let's go back. Of course, after we play knight c3, Black is not obliged to play king g1. In this position, he can reply with the pawn move g2, threatening to promote already on g1. What should we do in this case? And in fact, I would like to say that the next move for white is the most difficult move in the entire study. So there is nothing wrong if you couldn't find it. For now, let's look at what options we have to continue fighting for a win. If we play bishop d5, pinning the pawn on g2, the problem is that Black plays king g1, and after knight e2, we no longer have any fork, because the pawn has already moved from g3. As a result, after Black plays king f2, we no longer have time to play knight g3, and we are forced to sacrifice our knight. Otherwise, one of Black's pawns will simply queen. We capture the pawn on g2, but Black captures our knight, and the result is again only a draw. So, let's go back. What other options do we have after the pawn move g2? The move knight e2 looks tempting. The idea of this move is that we take away the g1 square from the opponent's king, and Black seems to be forced to promote the pawn. And if he promotes to a queen, then we really do win easily. We play bishop d5, check. Black is forced to block with the queen, and then follows a very beautiful mate with knight and bishop. But the problem is that Black does not have automatic queen promotion set in this position. Of course, he promotes to a knight, gives us a double attack, and as a result, we can no longer do anything. We are forced to capture the opponent's knight because our bishop is in a bad position. After we capture it, Black promotes to a queen, and we have no choice but to play bishop d5 and force a draw in this way. So let's return to the position after Black played g2, and I will finally show you the correct move. We need to play bishop c4. But why is this move the only winning one? You will see very soon. For now, let's look at what Black can do in this position. He has only a few options to continue the fight. He can play king g1, and he can also promote the pawn either to a knight or to a queen. Let's start with the most obvious option, if Black promotes the pawn to a queen. In this case, we play bishop d5 and once again simply win the opponent's queen. Then, we stop the remaining pawn and easily achieve victory. So, let's return to the position after bishop c4. We are left with only two options to consider, king g1 and the most interesting option, which we will save for last. What happens if the opponent promotes the pawn to a knight with check? But first, let's look at the move king g1. It is here that it becomes clear why we played bishop c4. Now we move our knight to e2 with check, and after Black plays king f2, our knight is protected. If our bishop were on d5, Black would attack our knight, and we would be forced to sacrifice it because the pawns want to promote. But now we calmly capture the pawn, our knight is protected, all passed pawns are stopped, and we achieve a win. That is exactly why the move bishop c4 is so strong. So, let's go back again. After we play knight e2, Black has one more retreat option. He can move the king to h1, and this is where the real fun begins. Remember how, when our bishop was on a 2, the threat of promoting a pawn to a knight was deadly for us? Now we can place our bishop slightly differently. We move our bishop to b5, and after Black promotes the pawn to a knight, instead of capturing it, we begin a very ambitious plan. We move our king to g3, sacrifice our knight on e2, and in this way, we push the opponent's king into the very corner, threatening simply to play bishop c6 and deliver checkmate on the next move. The opponent has no choice but to play knight d4, covering the c6 square. But now, thanks to the fact that our bishop on b5 is very active, unlike when it was on a2, we can transfer our bishop to the very strong square f1. And on the next move, mate with bishop g2 becomes inevitable. Black makes any move, and we play bishop g2. Now we are left to analyze the last and most interesting variation. What happens if the opponent promotes the pawn to a knight with check immediately? Of course, we move our king to g3 and essentially put the opponent into zugzwang. The king and the pawn cannot move. If he plays the knight to f3 or h3, we simply capture it, so he is forced to sacrifice the knight on e2. But of course, we cannot accept this sacrifice. We immediately notice that we cannot capture with the knight, because the position becomes a stalemate. Black's king and pawn still cannot move. And we also cannot capture with the bishop, because black plays king g1, and the same problem from the beginning of the study appears. The pawn is about to promote, and we cannot stop it, because the bishop blocks the crucial e2 square for the knight. Therefore, after black plays knight e2, we are forced to sacrifice our knight once again. But in return, we completely block the opponent's king in the corner of the board. Black captures our knight on c3, and here it is important to understand what our next move is. Of course, we want to place our bishop on the long diagonal, but we must also consider the opponent's threats. If we make any bishop move in this position, the result is a draw. Black simply gives perpetual check. He plays knight d1, and we are forced to move the king somewhere. If we move too far away, black's king escapes. And if we keep running between f1 and f2, we get a repetition of position. So of course, we must not allow perpetual checks. After black captures our knight, we play king f1. Now, black cannot give us any checks with his knight, and therefore he must somehow defend against the threat of bishop d5. He plays knight e4. Now, we cannot play bishop d5, because that would be stalemate. So instead, we play bishop d3. Black sets another trap. He moves his knight to d2 and then sacrifices the knight on f3. But of course, we cannot capture the knight because the king escapes to g1. So instead, we play bishop a6. And now black can no longer do anything. In any case, on the next move, we play bishop b7 and deliver checkmate to the opponent's king. I hope you enjoyed this wonderful study. It is very difficult, but at the same time, incredibly beautiful. If you liked it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribing. You can also support me directly using the link in the description. And don't forget that you can play chess for free using the link below as well. Thank you all for watching, and bye everyone.